I'm half Lebanese, half Syrian. My mom is from Lebanon. My dad is from Syria. And back at that time, I was still in Syria. I was stuck in a country where basically you have a dictator kind of running the whole country. You have no access to YouTube, no access to Wikipedia, no access to Facebook. Of course, you have dial-up.
Okay, so I'm sitting here with I'm going to say good friend, Ali, also ex-client, not because we didn't like each other, but because we finished the work we were doing, and owner, founder, CEO of Sports Templates. And I wanted to talk to him a little bit today about his journey from not being an artist to starting out as an artist to then running a successful business. But first, let's maybe start with your origin story, Ali. Like, where did you come from? Where did this start? And for artists that are like, it's so easy once you've already made it, but you have a unique story that I don't think people will expect.
That's true. So this whole thing started like in around 2007. I was around like 18, 19, and I was just on this website called DeviantArt. I'm not sure if you still use it or know of it, but I
definitely know of it. Yeah, I think back in the mid thousands, that's where everybody was.
So I got a free program called Swish. I got like a 30-day trial. It was like a Flash program when Flash was like the main thing, and it was like you can draw in Victor on it. And I made this wallpaper and just posted on DeviantArt. No one gave it any attention or like liked it or anything. And then I don't know, something happened and it kind of blew up, and I couldn't stop. And I spent the next 3 years just jumping from software to software, which was like the biggest rookie mistake. Is like, oh, this is gonna make me a better artist, and then you don't know better, but like you just think like, oh, I need this 3D thing. I'm gonna be like really a good artist.
Right. I mean, right now it sounds kind of like everybody's origin story, right? I have a very similar origin story of like, oh, I thought this thing and it was really cool. And I was like, how do I make that? And then you just start trying to make it. And it's like, oh, this program looks really neat. I'm going to learn that. I'm going to learn Blender. And it's like, oh, that's really fun. Like, oh, but now I want to make a website. I guess I'll learn HTML or I'll learn whatever. Like, and I remember sitting there, the free program I had was GIMP. That was one I used, kind of like you said, Swish was yours. And it's the same thing. Yeah. It's like, oh, let me learn this. And it's like, oh, someone wants me to make a logo? Sure. Like I was doing everything from DVD covers to filming sporting events to like, whatever it was. As long as it was anything creative, I'm like, I'm in. Like, yeah. I'm going to do it. One thing, if you're willing, I kind of like to get into is there's a lot of people that I know that I don't know how many people are going to watch this, but there are a lot of people I tend to interact with that are just starting out and they're like, well, I can't do that, right? Like, well, I'm not there. I'm in too poor of a country. I know a lot of people from India is like, YouTube's really taking off and it's like, I can't do that. And I've lived in India for 6 months before and understand a lot of the issues, but this isn't a limitation for those people. And I was wondering if you could get into a little bit of that time in 2007 when you're just starting out. What was your situation like and how did that evolve?
I'm half Lebanese, half Syrian. My mom is from Lebanon. My dad is from Syria. And back at that time, I was still in Syria. I was stuck in a country where basically you have a dictator kind of running the whole country. You have no access to YouTube, no access to Wikipedia, no access to Facebook. Of course, you have dial-up. I would just go online and try, this time with like DeviantArt and trying to be part of this whole thing. At the same time, I didn't speak a lot of English, so I kind of learned just watching stand-up comedy because I just love stand-up comedy, and it was something I really liked. So trying to make it with my bad English back then, and in a place where there's no internet and there's no American companies operating there because of its dictatorship, and it's not doing any business with the US. So you don't have PayPal, you don't have any of these companies. Like everything's like, oh, you're in a sanction, because of sanctions on Syria. So I couldn't do anything. And I learned about proxies. So I had a friend who was living outside of the country, like in Europe, and he helped me get a proxy connection. Mm-hmm. And we bought a specific piece of receiver that you can get download speeds through satellite radio, satellite internet. So I'm downloading through satellite and I'm uploading through dial-up. I didn't need a lot of upload speed, but I need a lot of download. and I did this contract with an Italian company, and they were covering like, because Syria is kind of on the my city was on the Mediterranean, so it was like it just kind of in the same area that Italian company covers, and it just worked out for me. Like, it was jumping through so many hoops so I can just be at least on an equal footing with the rest of the world. Like, I just want working internet.
So you're cobbling together this stuff, and and it's funny because like when I was living in India, and then also I used to do a lot of work in Spain, it was very similar. It was like you'd not as bad, obviously. Like there wasn't a dictator in any of those countries when I was there, but it was the same thing. It's like you had like cables and 10 different things going to 10 different, it's like, well, we're going to run this through, like you said, dial up. This is going to be through, whatever. And as you get more rural, which is where a lot of time I was, you got more and more creative with how you're going to get access to things.
Yeah, trying to make it in that environment was pretty stressful, especially that I didn't have anybody around me that was had the same interest, like talking about, like I wanted to talk about, do you know like this new Photoshop feature? Oh, do you know anything about this 3D thing? There was only like one person that I kind of connected with, and he was more on the development side. It was really easy to give up right there and just do whatever everyone else is doing, get a degree in whatever, and just do a government job and get paid like peanuts. Mm-hmm. So, but working online kind of like made me realize like there's this whole world kind of outside, and I could be part of it. And then the war started, about the war in Syria started in 2011. And now on top of all of that, you have ISIS kind of like in the neighboring city.
And you're probably what, 20, 21 at this point, 23?
Yeah, 22.
Yeah. Okay.
22, 21. And so on top of all of that is like, in my mind, like, I just want to get out. I don't want to die. Like I want to do creative things. I want to be in the sports industry, like all these thoughts. And it's like, oh, there's a war, and every day I'm thinking about like thousands of, like, I think up to now the death toll is like 1 million person.
Yeah.
In 10 years. It's insane. I know like everyone, I'm not trying to kind of like disrespect anyone else's struggles or anything, but this was a pretty rough place to be.
That's about as bad as you get. I mean, it's pretty hard to get past like fearing for my life every day as far as struggling. That's about as true as a struggle as you can have.
It was like the positive thing of this whole thing was that, okay, I can't get out because everything is kind of like, you got secret police, you got like all kinds of people trying to, do like really bad stuff. So I kind of just stayed home, and I just put all that frustration into like learning. Back then, now people have it really easy with YouTube. You can just learn everything on YouTube. Back then, there was not a lot of YouTube educational stuff. You just go download a PDF, or you just get bits and pieces of like an HTML page where like they have like a 12-step on how to do something, and it's really vague, and you have to kind of fill in the blanks and figure it out for yourself. So I was just putting all my time into learning, and I realized that if I want to make it, I have to save so I can get out. And this is what I did. I didn't spend my money on anything. I just bought like a graphics card or stuff like that, just things to kind of help me work. And I paid for like a battery of a truck to power my computer when I'm rendering, because there was no electricity. Imagine like you have a Skype call schedule with a client, and it's like, it's when the electricity is out. So you have to be like, and no one's gonna believe this whole sob stories. Like they want their project done on that day, so you gotta figure it out. During that time, I connected with a friend who was half Syrian, half Romanian, and he moved to Romania like in 2004 or something. He used to be a friend with my dad, and he was older than me, but we were kind of like, he had like this young spirit, and he would always come over and talk about computers and video games and stuff like that. And I kind of connected. I found him on DeviantArt by chance, because we didn't, back then he didn't have my info after he left. He was just on the same route. He was a graphic designer doing stuff on DeviantArt, and I just recognized his name, and I just is like, by any chance that same guy? Is like, that is me. Wow. We hopped on Skype and kind of like, caught up on the whole like 7-8 years about what happened and stuff. And he's like, you know what, I'll see what I can do. After we kind of like worked on that, I got the visa, and I was able to come to Romania. All my
opportunities,
it's just everything kind of opened up. it took me a while to kind of like decompress and just like, okay, I'm not in danger anymore, and I can now at least focus on what I can do. And this was like around 2014. So after a year, like the idea of sports centers was already kind of brewing in my head, but I didn't feel like you can do any of that stuff being stuck there. So coming to me, like, all right, now actually I can start doing it.
That's insane to me. It's insane to me that like, while living through all this craziness, you were still like thinking creatively and trying to think through like, oh, what can I do? And like this and that. And like, again, you're making it real hard for me with my whole luck thing, but I do think it's still calculated. like you running into that friend sounds absolutely crazy, right? Yeah. It's like that you can't write a book better than that. Like, and then I was on this art website, and I happened to run into this person, and then, I reconnect with someone that I hadn't talked to in 10 years or whatever. And then they helped get me out of the country.
Actually, all went down to one specific thing about his name, because his name is Wasim. Usually it's written with a W, but he wrote with the O because Romanians pronounce it as Vasim. But with an O, I was like, this must be the guy. Like, what are the chances? And this is how it happened. Yeah, it sounds like something out of a movie. And for me, just, coming here was like, I've seen this big breakthrough in my career and and everything. Like thinking about my future and this kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think it was a really good point of what you just said, which was, taking advantage of every opportunity you do have, right? I think so often we can look at all the things we don't have access to or don't have the opportunity. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of tell this story is because I think a lot of people would look and be like, well, I don't have X, Y, or Z, or I can't do this because I don't have fast internet. I just have regular internet, or I don't have, a good, nice webcam, right? I just have like a crappy cell phone, or I don't have whatever. So I can't make the thing that they want to make. And the answer is like, it might be a lot harder. It'll probably be a heck of a lot harder. But if you use the resources you do have creatively, you can usually find something out. There are people, that does not mean that we suddenly lose empathy for people that don't have, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you are stuck there and you're the one that has to take responsibility for your situation, whether you should or not, it doesn't matter, you have to. In those cases, it's like find the satellite phone and the dial-up connection and a car battery and get yourself a better life. That's what you're gonna have to do. Because no one else has done it, and to this day, there's still a ton of issues, right, in Syria and other places where, it's like people haven't been able to get anything to work out really long term. And it's like, we need to figure that out. But in the meantime, you're responsible for your own body, your own soul. And, if you can look for where do I have opportunities? And then once those opportunities open up, like, okay, where do I have more opportunities? Like, what else can I do? And then really once you get to a point where, okay, I'm not dying anymore, I'm not looking to how to feed myself. I think the next step, like you said, is to examine, is this really what I want? Now that I have the luxury to ask what I want, is this what I want? Do I want to go work for Ubisoft, or, do I want to work in San Francisco at a tech company doing UI and UX design? It's like, I don't know. Like I thought I did, but now that I have a time to look at it, and I think the kind of last part of that whole cycle is, be okay to let go, right? If you thought you wanted something and you pursue it and you achieve it, and then it's not what you think, or it's not what you wanted, it's like, hey, maybe this isn't working out, or I spent 2 months working on something. It's like, move on to the next thing, try it again. I think that's the whole cycle of being an entrepreneur is like, necessity is the mother of invention. And then once you've invented something, it's like being not so attached to it that you're willing to constantly change, to adapt and let go and move on. Yeah. Thank you so much, man, for jumping on.